and welcome back to another episode of Financial Freedom by 40. My name's Kelly, and we are a Kiwi family of four about to embark on an epic adventure around Australia in our new Jayco caravan. So, in this week's episode, we wanted to go back to the caravan pickup day and run you through some of the things that we did on caravan pickup day, some of the things that we learned about picking up a new caravan, and just to give you a bit of insight and some tips into what you might like to do if you are picking up your own caravan shortly. So, hopefully, you find this episode helpful. So we went over to Australia in July in the school holidays to pick up our van, and we bought a Jayco all-terrain off-grid X van. And so we're pretty excited about going over there and picking it up. So we booked a time well in advance with Jayco. So that's one thing I would say is if you've got a tight time frame like we did, where we were coming over in a specific period of time to do this, which was for us the school holidays, we had, sort of a fairly limited date range that we were able to come over and pick up our caravan. So, first of all, we made arrangements with the Jayco agent who we were working with, and he was able to look us in a time that suited us for picking up our caravan. So, just a quick tip in terms of that as well. So, we allowed, and I think that the Jayco had said that it was about 2 hours for caravan handover time. So during the handover, the idea is that you get to meet your caravan for the first time and run through all of the little bits and pieces that you need to understand how to run. So there are a lot of different systems within the caravan and on the caravan that you need to learn to understand. And so the idea is that you have a Jayco staff member go through all of those things with you and show you how everything works so that when you head away on your caravan for the first time, that you don't have any hiccups. So we had allowed 2 hours, as we discussed with the agent from Jayco, but ultimately what ended up happening was that it took us quite a lot longer than that. Now, there were a number of reasons for that. So it just, I think, generally took us a lot longer than we thought to go through all of the questions that we had about the caravan and learn how everything worked. So we didn't keep a track of exactly how long it took, but I imagine that part in itself was more than 2 hours. On top of that, there were some adjustments that needed to be made to our vehicles. So we we had to have additional plugs added to the back of our vehicle to be able to connect up the some of the attachments. I don't know all the technical terms, but there's lots of cables that go, with a number of cables that go between the caravan and the vehicle, and we had to have some things wired into the caravan. So Jayco fortunately has somebody who is in-house there, an auto sparky there, who is able to do those sorts of jobs for you, but we hadn't allowed that in our 2 hour time frame for picking up the caravan. So one of the things that we did do was we went away for a little bit. So we went, there's a sort of shopping area just up the road. We went and had some lunch while I did that to connect up the caravan. So that took a little bit of time. And then also one of the other things that we wanted to do too was to arrange insurance. So the insurance took a little bit of time. We had some forms to fill out and reading all the terms and conditions. I mean, we'd done some of that in advance. We had reviewed different insurance companies and policies, and we felt that the Jayco policy was one that was right for us. Make sure you do your own research, but we felt like the Jayco policy was a good one for what we're doing and gave us the coverage that we needed. So we signed up for the Jayco insurance and paid for that and everything there on the day. So that added a little bit of time to it. So I think all up, we were there for about 4 or 5 hours. So it was quite a long day. And we had decided to take Xavier with us. So he thought it was fun at the start, but it was starting to get a little bit tired of it at the end. He did have our GoPro and he was doing some filming for us while we were there. But that's quite a long time for him to have to wait, even with a lunch break in between. So probably if we would do it again, we wouldn't take any of the kids with us. We would just go by ourselves. So there's a little tip for you. If you think it's going to be quick, it might not be, particularly if you have to do all of those additional things. I mean, we could have probably done the insurance in advance if we wanted to, but we were able just to do it. I think it was easier just to do it there on the day. And yeah, we hadn't sort of factored in how long it would take for the little vehicle alterations to be done. So, a couple of little tips for you there in terms of your timing. Just probably, be flexible, allow a little bit of extra time if you have to do those other sort of additional things and allow for that in your time frames for your planning. So while we were there, we went through everything in the caravan, basically inside and out, how everything operated. And that's a really, really important thing. As we discovered afterwards, it's really, really important to listen carefully to everything that is said to you. So there's just really a lot to take in. And we did, both of us were there, we were both listening. But there were just so many things. It's like, anything you do, there was just so much to take in that there were a couple of things that we didn't sort of fully understand, I suppose, while we were there. So I think it's a really, really good idea to videotape things as you go. So there were just like some little details of things around, particularly things like filling up the water tanks and connecting the hoses. And it wasn't really until we actually had to do those things that we realized, oh, okay, actually we do have some questions about those things, or we didn't quite take in the advice that the person who was helping us on the day gave us. So yeah, I think if there's like it's probably a good idea just to sort of video each little section so that you can have that for yourself saved on your phone or somewhere that you can come back to, so you can go, okay, well, this is what they said about connecting up the pipes. This is what they said about how the I don't know, like the computer system works, or this is how the battery system works. So you've got all those little things for later on as well. Another thing that I would say too is that when you are doing your caravan pickup, it's good for you to try out some of those things yourself. So like we had a thing with the grill and the oven. So the person who worked for Jayco, he started up the oven. And I mean, I kind of thought, oh, well, I'm used to these kind of ovens from boating days. But when it actually got to it, when we were away in the caravan for our little shakedown trip, I couldn't get the grill to go on the caravan. So when we go back, we'll have to figure out what the deal is with that, whether there's something not quite right with the grill or whether maybe we just didn't follow instructions very well. But neither of us could get the grill to actually stay on. We could strike it, but we couldn't get it to stay on if you took your finger off it. So just some little things like that, like understanding there might have been just some little thing that we weren't quite doing to get it right. So while you're there, I think it's a good idea for you to make sure that you actually know how to do all the little things. There were lots of little tips that we like if they didn't explain it to you, you wouldn't know how to do it necessarily, particularly if you're new to caravanning like we are. So there were just, some of those things that it's really good to either take notes or take videos or, record an audio file or something on your phone so you can come back to, because yeah, it can be quite overwhelming with the amount of stuff that you're trying to get through on your pickup day. The other thing too, I would say, is ask lots of questions. If you're not sure about anything, do ask, because like I said, there can be little intricacies of how things work. Just little things like, for example, the light switches. The guy told us while we were there that the light switches in the caravan are all battery operated. And so what we did, like, we probably wouldn't have realized that if he hadn't have told us. So the actual switches themselves can come off and there's little batteries that go in them. They're not wired into the caravan system overall. So if we found that one of the light switches wasn't working, we might have been like, oh no, it's broken. But really, down the track, this probably isn't going to be a factor for us anytime soon, but that we will need to, replace the batteries in each of the switches within the caravan. So, ask questions about everything that you can think of. I feel like there's not really any silly questions, particularly if you're newbies to caravanning like we are, that it's a good idea to ask rather than to not know when you get away in your caravan and then have to try and figure it out for yourself or find it in a YouTube video. There's lots of YouTube videos on things, and that's usually actually how we find the answers for things. If we aren't too sure or we're struggling to figure something out, I mean, more often than not, you can find a video that tells you how to do something, and we might even make some of those of our own down the track when there's little things that we figure out about the caravan that maybe might be useful for other people to know as well. One thing that was actually really helpful, and I'd ask if they don't do this for you, is that the guy at Jayco who we worked, the sales agent, he pulled together for us a whole bunch of booklets and brochures about all the different things in the caravan. So like the instruction manuals for the fridge and for the I don't know, just about everything, air conditioning, all the little different booklets, and had them in our little service manual for the caravan. So I don't know if that's just a standard thing that they do for everyone, or you have to ask for that. But we already had a couple of things while we were away in the caravan for our little few days on our little shakedown trip that we ended up pulling those manuals out because these are kind of, different sorts of appliances to what we're used to around home. And there were a few little settings and things that we had to change. So having the manuals handy was good. I mean, you can probably find the manuals online and, there's probably PDF files, but it was quite nice having them just there in the caravan, especially if you end up off grid and you find that you don't have internet access, for example, then you've got the booklets there that you can just look up and solve any problems yourself as well. Yeah, and then just to touch on two other little things. So I mentioned that we got the insurance on the day and we got those alterations to the vehicle done on the day. I mean, not everybody's necessarily going to do that. You might choose to get your insurance from somewhere else, or or you might have your vehicle altered in advance, and get the right plugs added on by your own auto sparky. So you don't necessarily have to do that on your caravan pickup day. It's probably a good idea to drop into your caravan company before your pickup day. If you can with your vehicle, then that's a good idea, just to make sure that you've got all the right plugs and things on your vehicle, so that if you don't, you've got the time to sort that all out as well. Then one final last thing I thought I'd mention again, in case you are like us and you've got a period of time between when you purchase your caravan and you actually start your trip. Um, you've got to store the caravan for a period of time. So, what we did when we were leaving the caravan was we drained out all the waters, made sure that the toilet tank was empty, that the grey water was all taken out. So, everything was, nice and clean and ready to go for us when we get back. And also just to make sure that it doesn't, um, you know, get any bugs or anything in the water system while we're away. Made sure obviously all the windows are closed, everything's all sealed up and secure. Made sure that all the power cables were nicely bagged up so that they don't end up with getting water into them or anything. And so we have no surprises when we get back to the caravan. So it's probably not really like the norm that you'd be leaving it for a long period of time once between caravan pickup and actually starting your trip, especially not leaving to go to a different country. But just if you are doing what we're doing, then, just make sure that your caravan is all nicely cleaned out. There's no food or anything that's going to cause you any troubles when you get back to your caravan. Probably fairly obvious, but yeah, we just did a really thorough check and made sure everything was safe and secure and not going to cause us any problems when we get back. But when we arrive back in Australia in a couple of weeks' time, we will give you a rundown on how everything is looking and give you any other tips that we can. So it's a nice short episode from us this week. Hope you find that helpful. Not long now until we get off on our big lap. So if you want to follow along the journey, make sure you click the subscribe button so that you get all of our latest episodes. We are now only 2 weeks until we land in Australia and get ready to go. So won't be too much longer before we start sharing all of our travels and adventures. We are going to be running a few weeks behind, so we won't be posting in real time, but you will get to see where we've been, and we'll take you along on the travel journey with us, which is super excited. Hope you have a wonderful week, and we will see you again next week. Bye for now, and thanks for watching.